Hello world, Shelly here, and it is Saturday, December 7th. Happy Vlogsmas! I filmed this whole video on the way here, and it filmed with no audio, so we are gonna do this again. Today, I thought I would explain what my definitions are of natural and clean skincare as a fledgling indie formulator. These terms have become basically just a whole bunch of marketing hype, so I want to clarify what they mean to me when I use those terms and how that affects what I formulate. So first, I think we will talk about the difference in terminology, because if we're not all on the same page, then I think a lot of confusion comes from that. So the first thing I'll address is, let's just say when you hear people saying, chemicals, ew. Guess what? Water's a chemical. It has two hydrogens and an oxygen molecule. So chemicals aren't bad. Chemicals are natural. They can be, like, there's the word chemical is not an evil word. So get that out of your head if you have that sensibility. The next thing, let's talk about natural. None of these terms are regulated in the United States as far as legal regulations and what they mean. So companies don't all have the same definitions, and so they can use these terms, and because the usage of the terms is not regulated, there's nothing to say how truthful or not, or how accurate or not a definition is. So the way that I define natural, and this won't mean a whole lot to most people, but it is verifiable, is that there are two international organizations, COSMOS and ECOCert, and those two organizations define, they analyze ingredients, they look at how the ingredients are made, and they sort of set rules for whether an ingredient would be suitable for a formulation that is considered natural. Typically, all of the ingredients are naturally derived. They came from nature, meaning they came from a plant, for example. And then they also look at toxicity levels of different ingredients, as far as how toxic they can be to the human body, or how toxic they can be to the environment. And so they kind of make the rules based on factors relating to that. So I decide if an ingredient is natural if it is Cosmos or EcoCert approved. Now, the thing with natural ingredients is not all natural ingredients are good, and not all synthetic or man-made ingredients are bad. For example, poison ivy is natural. You're not going to put that in your skincare. There are ingredients in nature that are toxic to people, and there are ingredients in nature that are beneficial and wonderful for people. By the same token, there are ingredients that are man-made or synthetic that are toxic to people, and there are ingredients that are man-made or synthetic that are wonderful and beneficial. Now, I am a fan of science. I am a science girl. I believe science, the scientific method, the processes of validating hypotheses, and the whole scientific research process. I believe in that. I also believe that as we know better, we do better. So science is always evolving our understanding of things. Oh, we got music going. So I strive to formulate things that are 95% plus natural. I'm not opposed to using synthetic or man-made ingredients. I will use them with a purpose. My goal is to keep everything non-toxic, and so I look to EcoCert and Cosmos to determine the suitability in a natural formulation of my ingredients. And then if something is man-made or synthetic that is not EcoCert or Cosmos approved, I will go to different lengths to research the effects on the human body and the effects on the environment, because I also want to maintain a lack of toxicity to the environment. I also want sustainability and renewable resources when possible. So that is my definition of natural. That's how I interpret it, and that's how I use that term. Now, the last definition I want to talk about is clean, which is another unregulated term Most of the major retailers in the beauty space have come up with their own definitions. So you've probably heard of Clean at Sephora, or Ulta Beauty has a version they call Conscious Beauty at Ulta Beauty. Target has their version. I can't think of the name of it, but it's something about clean personal care. And I can take my ingredient lists of my products and compare them against the rules that these companies have come up with. And while I can't say that my products are clean at Sephora because Sephora has not evaluated my products, I can compare to those lists and I can say my products adhere to the guidelines that Clean at Sephora recommends, or that Conscious Beauty at Ulta Beauty recommends, or Target's Clean program recommends. So I am not endorsed by those companies or those programs. I have no affiliation with them, but I do compare my ingredient lists to them to see where they fall. So I strive to have all of my formulations adhere to those 3 sets of clean guidelines. And again, clean is kind of the absence of toxins, and it's looking at things that are typical allergens or sensitizers, things that will typically cause reactions in people's skin, or more often than not. And so those are the kinds of ingredients that are banned from clean labeling. So it's a combination of toxicity and sensitivity, allergen sensitivity, that kind of a thing. There are not really distinctions in the clean beauty industry between natural and synthetic. You will find ingredients of both kinds that are clean. So I strive first to be clean, all clean ingredients. Second, to be 95% plus natural. And that's kind of how I approach the natural / clean formulation space. I am not opposed to synthetics and man-mades if they have a purpose and they are non-toxic. So that's how I approach my formulation. It's kind of a process of investigating ingredients. So for example, when I came across the cloudberry ingredient that I used in my Arctic Renewal moisturizer, so I found information. I read an article about this cloudberry, which I thought was really cool. And one of the places where I get ingredients from, Formulator Sample Shop, I wish I lived in North Carolina because they have a physical location. I totally want to go there and just like buy everything in person. But I order from them online, and I saw they had this cloudberry. And so I looked into the ingredient, and my first thing was to see, how is the cloudberry processed? Is it ECOCert or COSMOS approved? Is it going to be suitable for natural formulation? Because sometimes what happens is you take something that came from a natural origin, like from a plant, let's say, like cloudberries. They're a relative of raspberries. It's a berry that grows in the Arctic and the subarctic areas of the world. So the processing, some things will be, they'll use chemical processes or manual processes that introduce either toxins to the ingredient, or they might introduce things that are toxic to the environment. So the process of processing that plant might be harmful to the environment. So those things would not qualify for natural formulation. Well, luckily, cloudberries, they're minimally processed, and the processing that they go through to become an ingredient is not harmful. So it's not a toxic process. So cloudberries became, they starred front and center in my formulation for that moisturizer. Just to give you a little behind the scenes of that process. So I was putting together the additives, and so I pay attention to kind of what else I have in my product line, because I don't want to put the same active ingredients into everything, because if you build a skincare routine around them, like I don't want you to be, quadrupling up niacinamide on your face. I want specific things for specific purposes. You know, some actives you really can't overdose on. You'll find squalane in a lot of things I make because it is so good for your skin, and there's no overdosing on it. It's not an irritant. It's not that kind of an active that an overdose would be an irritating situation. But I do pay attention to that across all of my products, so that if you do build a routine out of my products, you're not going to be overdosed on any of the main actives. So I kind of come up with the structure of what I want the active ingredients to be, and then from there I can formulate, you know, in the case of this lotion, how thick do I want it? How thin do I want it? Is this going to be a body product where I might have some fragrance added, or is it going to be a facial product where I refuse to put fragrance into my facial products? When I say fragrance, I mean synthetic fragrance ingredients. Now, I will say I generally also don't like essential oils in my facial products because they're just very highly sensitizing. They can be used for fragrance purposes to give a scent to something, but in facial products, essential oils can be sensitizing. Well, they can be sensitizing in any products, but especially sensitive facial skin. So generally my facial products do not have added scent ingredients. I don't use synthetic fragrance in them, and if there is something scented, so for example, when I was doing modifications to the second version of my bakuchiol cream, I used rosehip oil, which does not smell like roses really. It's lightly floral, but it's an oil, it's an ingredient, it's great for anti-aging. It happens to smell like that, so it's an additive that has a purpose of both anti-aging, helping of the skin, and scent purposes. So sometimes there will be ingredients that won't be listed on the ingredient list as fragrance, because fragrance typically means the synthetic fragrances that are this ambiguous, you know, blanket term that covers everything. But there could be things in your products that give it a scent that won't be listed as fragrance. We just ran into this in the Jones Road, the WTF foundation, What the Foundation, and it's very heavily fragranced. Not with a synthetic fragrance, it's heavily fragranced with essential oils. Those are natural ingredients, but they can be sensitizing to the skin, and they do smell very strongly. So it's one of those things where you have to kind of get to know the various ingredients that are used for making scent, making your nose smell something. And either you use them or you avoid them depending on what sensitivities you have in your personal skin and in your body. So yeah, once I made all those decisions about the consistency of the lotion and the actives that I wanted to have in it, and you know, choices of like the emulsifier, the thing that combines the water and the oil to keep them together in a creamy consistency, you know, choosing different variations of those things results in different skin feels, different levels of absorption, different how much it soaps. Like if you get a little white cast and you have to rub it in more, sometimes I like having to rub things in a lot because it'll you improve your circulation, you bring the blood to the surface and all that, and sometimes you really don't want that. So you make all those decisions, you come up with a formula, you try it out a few times, you give it to some people to test out, and come up with the final recipe. So that was how the Cloudberry Arctic Renewal Moisturizer came to be. But those are my definitions of clean and natural and how I interpret those things and include them in my formulation process. If you have any questions, one of the things you know I'm a nerd about ingredients, so one of the things I really want is to be completely transparent with what I'm using, why I'm using it, what did I put it in there for, why is it there, why did I not use a certain thing. If you have any questions about anything like that, let me know, because I am glad to give you my rationales, what I've learned about different ingredients, what I chose and why I chose it, all that good stuff. So there you have it. I'm at the mall, of course, as I'm doing every weekend until Christmas, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so I'm gonna go about my day, hopefully sell some skincare and some t-shirts and some tie-dyes. And yeah, I hope you're all having a very good weekend. Have yourselves an awesome Saturday. And as always, thanks a lot for taking some time out of your day to geek out over makeup and Vlogsmas with me this time. I appreciate your time, and I hope you guys all have an awesome day or night wherever you are in the world. Take care of each other. Bye-bye.